Great. And I will turn on my camera because I am a social being. Okay, welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about Blackthorn B2B e-commerce. We are a distributed team. There are 11 of us on the team. We got our start about 3 years ago. You might know us from our payments application, and that serves as the underlying engine which our B2B e-commerce application sits on top of. So today we're going to discuss what problem we're addressing. There's multiple different problems. We're going to review the different features, and then we're going to go into a demo. So the problem there's multiple problems here. The overall problem is that within Salesforce out of the box, there's no way to do more advanced pricing and product management scenarios, and then there's no way to bill for them and collect payments. Now, a lot of applications do this, but not a lot of stacks do them in a singular application. And you may have seen the screenshots on our App Exchange. The second layer coming for this is our e-commerce front end. So this demo today is going to be focused on the back end of what occurs in Salesforce. And then on a future demo, we're going to be showing the front end and how that interacts with the back end logic here. So I have 2 more slides, and then this is a demo-heavy type of webinar. So the overall features, you can run multi-currency without having to enable Salesforce's multi-currency. It's multi-company. The features within the product are that you can use our items object, and our whole stack only needs an App Cloud license. You don't have to have a Sales Cloud or Service Cloud license. But you can use standard products if you want to. The same functionality that's available in our custom items object will work with standard products. And common things that people always look for: how do I bundle or have related products related to a singular parent, where if for example, you're offering a package. And then also there's concepts of how do I do pricing in different currencies, or if a price is only good for a certain date range, how do I group those? And we have different ways to group those with catalogs and different entries. Then you can price your products by what we call price plans, and those group different tiers of pricing. So for example, if the first 5 are part of your base fee, and then 6 to 20 are a different fee, and 21 plus are another fee, our application can automatically calculate that just by entering in the quantity on the line item. And then there's different types of discounting that you can do. So you can do discounting based upon a specific schedule. You can do it based upon a time period. So the first X period gives you a certain discount. And then there's the more basic standard discounting, where you can apply a code, and that can be specific to a time period or a number of uses that can be used on the front end. And then there's basic discounting, of course. So another nice feature in here is what we call recurring billing. This is more flexible than just subscriptions. So you can do subscription concepts where you can charge someone for an annual or quarterly or monthly type of plan that can then auto-renew. But the thing that makes this a bit more unique is that when you have an order, that can then be used to create 1 or multiple invoices on any type of schedule that you would want. So sometimes you might want to split up an invoice into, an order into a few invoices rather than having like a set schedule. And we'll show you what that looks like today. Then you can surface that invoice through the web for payment. It's different from a lot of different applications have static PDF generators where it's not really friendly. You can't pull it up on a mobile device, and you really can't do much with it. So this allows you to pull up the invoice to be able to pay. You can download it as PDF. It supports merge fields. It works on all devices. So it's pretty nice. And for invoicing, you can calculate the tax through Avalara. This supports VAT, US tax, GST. It supports Nexus. It supports the ship from and to. It'll auto-calculate all the different tax schemas based upon jurisdiction. You can have auto tax calculations, and you can even commit your tax through here, and Avalara can file your monthly or quarterly sales taxes. So if you're set up in multiple states, I know it's super annoying because I'm the one in our company that personally deals with this, to have to manually file monthly or quarterly sales tax. It's a lot nicer if you can automate that through some kind of process, which you can do with our application with Avalara. And then how we do payments. So if you're familiar with our payments application, it's the same application here, no surprise, but it serves as the underlying layer to be able to process payments by card or ACH. So the flow that we're going to discuss, and this isn't an exact science because you can go out of order, but we're going to show you how you can manage what it is that you're selling, how you're pricing it, creating what we call a sales document. So our model is a little different from other models where we combine quote, order, invoice, credit memo, these typical types of processes into a singular object that we call sales document, and we split them out by different record types. How you can add line items and what it looks like to see your billing schedule and tax and how we manage the pricing. And then if it's an order, you can send that for acceptance, or if it's a quote. And if it's an invoice, you can send that for payment. At the very end, we'll talk about pricing and how, like pricing of our application and how that works. So we have a few different scenarios, and we're going to start with our item, because when you want to sell something, the first thing you have to do is enter what it is that you're selling. So the three different examples we have are one that has recurring billing, one that has a price plan with tiers, and one that represents a bundle. So I'm going to show you a brief example of each one of these. So our first one here, when you create a bundle, you need some kind of controlling object. Like if you had, I'm selling the gold package and you wanted to like create some kind of wrapper type of product that says, this is the gold package. And then you would list your different components that are part of the gold package. So if we go ahead and click on one of these components, you'll see that there's a lot of information within the individual component. So you can have a specific order by which they get sorted. You can have a default quantity. So if you said you had 3 of these packages, it would take 3 times this quantity. You could have minimums and maximums. So if someone wanted to, if a salesperson wanted to edit the line item and someone in operations said you have different bounds that they can't change the quantities by, you can do something like that. You can set up different methods that you price the component. So you can make advanced logic where you can have tiers of prices based upon each component, because maybe each component of your package might have price tiers. So the different concepts that we're going to show, you can combine them into like a big, massive type of more complex pricing schema. You can specify a specific price here. You can drop these into different price catalogs. The price plan, this is where you relate your different tiers. Then you can have some more granular controls over when this gets managed from the line. Is the price or quantity editable? Is this required? Like you can't remove it from the bundle. And then we have different types of components. So bundled is the most classic type that you can have. And then we have other types of options you can have that we're not going to get into for this call. But the general sense is that there's different handling of how you can either always require an item as part of a package, make it be an option with different types of controls, or it's related, kind of like saying if you added a support plan, maybe it auto adds 10 additional hours of service, but that's something that's related as a type of cross-sell that maybe it's not required. So this is an example of the bundle, and I'm going to step through each of these item scenarios before I go much further. So if we look at our e-commerce license, this is an example of if you wanted to sell an item that had some kind of recurrence of billing that would come off of that. So in this example here, we have our basic subscription fields where we've vastly simplified the fields on the item. If you went to edit the layout, you'd see 3 times the amount of fields for different handling, but we wanted to focus today's call just on some of the core components. So from the top down, what you'll see is that you have a tax code. This deals with Avalara and how it's calculating tax for the type of product you're selling. If this item's only valid from and through a certain date, if you had a discount schedule that would need to get applied to the line each time that you added the item, if there's a specific currency that you wanted to list, of course the description, and then getting into what we find really interesting and what's pretty complicated to be able to data model and deliver is the ability to have billing recurrence. So the first thing you want to set is your default term, and all of these are just defaults. After you add the item onto the line item, you can then change it on the line item in case you were negotiating a deal or somebody wanted something unique. So here we have a default term of 12. So that means that your item is priced monthly because that's the term unit. So here's an item that's being sold that's 40 bucks, and you're typically selling this annually, so you'd set your term to 12 months. Then your default billing, maybe people by default want to pay quarterly and you're billing them in advance. But you can support other types of billing scenarios, like the most common are monthly, quarterly, annual. And then for the billing type, you can do it in advance, but in arrears, this is more used for usage-based billing. So that's something that's coming from us in Q3. So if you have any type of usage in any of your business process, all you need to do is pipe in your usage to our usage object, and our scheduled process will pick that up and will bill for that usage in arrears. And it's more involved than that as to how it comes to the pricing it needs to derive, but that's something that's coming from us in Q3. Some other things that you'll see here on the item, different list prices, and we have this concept of list price that's separate from catalog. That makes it a little bit simpler. If you're a company that only has one catalog, you don't need to deal with the catalog. Whereas within the list prices, you can specify different currencies, different valid from and through, and then different catalogs. So there's a lot of scenarios to do different types of basic pricing options. And then each item, you can specify tiers through price plans for the item, or you can add that item as part of a component. So you can sell items individually, or you can sell them as part of a component. Like if they're a child component, you can still opt to sell that item individually if you'd want to. So talking a little bit more about the subscription fields, what happens when I add this item to a line item, it's going to create the scenario of billing schedules. So in this case, it's quarterly, and we're selling it for 12 months. So there's 4 quarters in 12 months. It's going to create 4 billing schedule records. And what those represent is the invoices that that line item is going to appear on. So I'll demo this to you soon, but that's how that defaulted scenario works. Talking a little bit more about items, I want to go into our price plans and our tiers. So this is an example of an item that utilizes the price plan for the default type of pricing. And this pricing method here called price plan, this is the default pricing scenario for the item. On the line item, you could always associate this with different types of lookups, and that would utilize different types of pricing schemas. So you're not limited just to what this says here. You can actually set that in different ways. So if we go in and look at the price plan here, you see I've created 2 different tiers. This is an example where a lot of apps on the App Exchange, including our application, this isn't our exact scenario, but we have a base number of users that's included with the base fee. And then you have a pricing based upon tiers beyond that. So this is a very basic case. You can have as many tiers in here as you want. But the first base fee here has a lower bound and an upper bound, and this is based upon the number of quantity that you enter on the line. And then it has any quantity that you enter above 11. But there's more complex scenarios than this. The one I just showed you in that example is probably the most common request that we've had from people. But you can specify different things like different block sizes. If you have different overage rates, this is used for usage-based billing. If you wanted to apply different discounts that would get automatically set per tier that would get calculated, the calculations that are based in our Apex classes are pretty advanced and can save you a massive amount of time if you're doing a lot of this stuff custom. So from our items, those are the 3 different types of scenarios. And the one I didn't get into is when you have an item with just a list price or a price entry. That's pretty simple to think about. It's not entirely different from what you're used to with standard products, how you have a standard price, right? You can kind of think of it like that. It's a similar type of scenario. And again, you see these are all related objects on the item. We have an option to be able to select the use of products, and then all these related sets of functionality will then be deployed to products, so you can use products also. So what I'm going to do is start with an opportunity and show you the general flow that people generally go through. When you use our application, you don't have to use opportunities at all, but whenever we talk to anyone, this is what they're always doing. So when you create your basic opportunity, I'm just going to plug in some values here. I'm going to use Acme, and I'll go to save. Now we have our opportunity record, nothing amazing here. What we then do is you don't use products to add them from opportunity, because just like other applications that manage more advanced quoting and products, standard opportunity products is one of the most limited objects that Salesforce ever made. So here we're going to actually create our sales document as an order. And if you want to, you can optionally sync your products back. Just like if you've ever used standard Salesforce quotes, there's a sync, you can push it back. You can do the same thing with our application. But for today's demo, we're just going to be showing items. So here's our example subject. And this is just a basic opportunity action. You can include all different types of automations or fields here that you want. Now, if I look at our sales documents that were created, we're going to zip right in. One of the benefits of using a an action, is that we can predefine a lot of the fields that are included. And this helps us to be able to predefine different field values that get included in the lookup. So you see we've applied a template, and what this does in the background is that this is auto setting the defaults that we want for our web-based order or invoice. So this automatically set our company, our location, what gateway, which Stripe account we want to be pushing payments through if somebody was to pay from this. And this is all set from a template type of concept. It's an object that has basic lookups, and it works from automation, and nothing that we've configured here has used any code at all. Everything has been done declaratively, not even having to dig into process builders or workflows. All you have to do is set field values. So it's pretty nice for admins to be able to manage. So from our sales document here, you'll see that we've set our currency automatically. So it has the ability to manage multi-currency without having to enable that. And then if I go down here a bit further, you'll see we have a lot of fields that you would expect to see, like who it's billing, who the contact is, what the totals are, what the address is. And then we have some unique things to be able to see our documents below. So what I'm going to do is add a few line items, and you'll see that there's no line items or invoices or transactions created. So I'm going to add these through additional actions. The first one I'm going to add is our price plan that has our different tiers. And I'm going to say there's, let's say there's 12 of these. And let's add that one. Then we're going to add, let's see if we add our other scenarios onto here. So we're going to add our license, and this has our recurring billing scenario. So we're going to set a start date, and we're going to have, let's see, we'll have 15 of these. And then we'll add a line that has our bundle scenario. So if we go in and let me find our bundle parent, I'll just put on one of these for simplicity, and we'll go ahead and save. When you add the bundle parent, it auto adds the child items to the lines. And you see now that we now have our line items that were auto added. So three unique things I want to point out. So if we go into this item, which has our price plans, you'll see on the related, you'll notice that we have a price schedule that was generated. What the price schedule does is that it clones your tiers from your existing price plan. And the reason we do that is that if you change your tiers in the future on the price plan, then you have a historical record of how that price was calculated. And additionally, it removes the logic from running off of that item in case you have to do something else in the interim. So the subsequent calculations are done right here off of their related record. So that's something unique that we do in our application. So if I go back to our line, some other unique things that we're doing here, if I go back to our related, you see that we have tax details that were now auto-calculated. So when I added the line item, we have our tax details for Avalara set to do auto calculations. So these split them out by jurisdiction. So you see, I didn't show you the bill to and ship to and account records, but we set them all to New York. And when you're based in New York and you sell to New York and it's a software, well, SaaS-based product, then it needs to apply tax calculation because we have Nexus in New York, which is where I am here. So here is our tax details that were auto-calculated. And for instance, if we go into look at city tax, it has all the information that you need to see about city tax. There's a 4.5%. The taxable amount of this line was 362K. That's calculated to be 16K. And it does this for each line automatically. You don't have to have it be set to automatic, but it's a pretty nice feature. It's one less thing for people to think about. And that auto calculates the estimated tax on the order. Now, the general, what's the term I'm looking for? The general best practice is that, well, you can do it either way, but sometimes you might not want to commit your tax until a payment has received, because if you commit your tax and do tax filing, but you never receive the payment, then you're left with being on the hook for the tax with the state, but you don't receive it, and maybe you need to reverse that somehow. So this does an estimated tax. It doesn't actually commit the tax. Now, if I go back to showing my sales document, a few other things I want to show you with the line items. So if we go into our e-commerce license, this is the one that we set up with our recurring billing fields. So you'll see that these were copied from the item. If we go to our related, you'll then see the billing schedule records that were created. So if we look at our first billing schedule record that was created, it separates the dates by quarter. So it has the start date that we wanted to originate this from. You'll see the term is 3 because that was by the term unit of month. And it has a date to process. So this will work with our invoice schedules and invoice runs. Today, I'm just going to click a button to show you how it generates the first invoice, but this is how it would pick up this invoice. You'll see that this hasn't been invoiced yet. Once that gets invoiced, that will get checked. And let me go back to our line and show you our other scenario with the sales documents. So the third here is that we have the bundle. So when you have the bundle parent, it adds the children. So if I look at one of the child components that was added, you'll see we have our description, quantity. It does any kind of math that it needs to do. And then you have your child bundle components. So now that I have all these basics, it's time to send this off and get this signed. So in case I wanted to have any merge fields that were included in the document, I wanted to show you an example. So you can automate the population of these fields, but here, let's say we have, here's some example terms, and here's examples of our terms. And it also supports merge fields. So an example of merge field would be like account, actually we need our namespace, and this would be with your field and your relationship value. And then you could set your lookup here. That would be like account name. I don't remember if this is the correct API name, so I might get an error, but this is an example of how you could do merge fields, and it just works by standard Salesforce API field name syntax. And that then merges the field name into that merge field. So if I click on the link, you'll then be able to see, yeah, it looks like I didn't get our merge field value from our formula right here, but that's how you would do it. So here's how we have our order, and you'll see that this is web-based. So if I resize, this is available on any device, so you can scroll and see the different line item fields. You can see the overview. You'll see that there's no fields up here in the top right that are set. These can get set from the values that you set in these fields here. So if you wanted to list different dates, you can put an expiration date. Those will get set in that area. We also support custom columns. So if you wanted to swap out the columns to be something else. And then we have the different configurable merge fields that you can include below. So if I go ahead and accept the document, everybody always asks, do we support signatures? So the answer is that that's on our roadmap, but for now we don't, and we won't have them for a little bit of time. So for now, there's just accept and reject on the order. You can also click this button and download it as a PDF if you want to, and it generates the PDF on the fly that you can then click and view the PDF. So if I go back to our sales document, you'll see this is in a draft state. When I go to refresh this should be saying accepted. Great. So now I can generate our first invoice. Now in this demo org that we're running, we don't have conversion of certain types of records generated for invoice yet. So I'm going to get rid of our parent here. This is a brand new functionality we have to generate invoices from billing schedules. So this will be fully ready for our launch. Gets me into our timing conversation for people to be able to begin demos, and trials, and to be able to utilize the application. That will be in July. So we have a few more weeks of little things to tidy up, and then demos and trials will be ready come July. So if I go back into our, our sales document details, we can see we have our status of accepted. Now, if I want to create the first invoice, you'll see that we have no invoices related. I'm going to go into creating our first invoice, and this will make an invoice out of the first billing schedule record that you saw from the line item. So if I go into this line item, you'll then see, we go to our billing schedule records. I don't have all the fields exposed on the line, but you'll see that this is now invoiced. And we should have our line. Let me see if we set our invoice lookup. Oh, I don't have our field on the line item here. Let me go back through here. I'm sorry. So I navigated now to our invoice through the line, and you see how we have all of our different template fields that were set from our lookups. And if I set our payment term, this is net 15, this will set the expiration date automatically when I save. And let's get some more basic information into our fields here. So you're a great customer. And then we want to set, let's see if we have any other options that we want to set. And I think we're good here. Maybe we'll set this to sent. We'll save. Now if we go down to click the link, this will then view our different options here to be able to pay. So I'll click pay, and you see that we can check out here by card. So I'm going to show you a secret option that's coming soon. If I go to skipping environments here, and I paused it momentarily. So this is in another org where if we wanted to take a payment actually by ACH from the form, so this is what's coming soon. It's not running out of this current environment. So you can see you can pay by credit card or by ACH. So you enter all of your ACH information, and this processes through our payments application. Or you can just pay by card. So if let me close some of these. Now if I go to pay by card, put in something unique. Now this then tokenizes the payment method in a PCI compliant fashion using our payments application, adds the payment method to your org, creates the transaction, processes the transaction, and then pays down the invoice. You'll see it's paid. Customer can download the receipt. You'll see that the balance paid is null and the payment status is null. If I refresh, you then see we have a paid document. We have our balance paid is updated, balance due is 0. We go to our related, and we have our transaction completed. So again, this is the back end of how our application stack works. On the follow-up demo, we'll be showing you how you can do your cart and have a full cart ready to view products and do complete checkouts. But what we're going to be having ready for launch in July is the full backend suite. Our front end will be coming soon, likely at the beginning of Q3 or a little bit past that. So sometime in Q3. And then you'll be all set with your backend here to be able to get going. So to be able to talk about the base pricing, so for our all the backend that I showed you, not the front end with the cart, but just for the backend, if you want to utilize it for quoting, for advanced pricing, for all these different billing scenarios that I showed you, The pricing begins at $29.90 per month, which is billed annually, and that includes the first 25 users. And there's additional users that you can pick up on top of that. There's no nonprofit pricing, it's just a flat set of pricing. And you can compare this pricing to, I won't name any other types of companies that do this, but a lot of times you'll see other applications that are significantly more expensive that do this in separate packages. So we actually combine the pre-sale and the post-sale into one seamless package and price point. And there's a bit of setup here. So this isn't the type of application you'd be using if you had one or two user company. The target type of company has mixed types of billing scenarios, mixed types of pricing scenarios that would typically have to build this out custom or get multiple applications and do lots of integrations. So this really simplifies this type of model for customers that have these types of applications. So if you have any questions, you can contact us hi@blackthorn.io. Are there any questions that anyone has before we conclude the webinar? I don't see any open questions that anyone has. No? Okay, well, feel free to send us an email. And what's the ETA on ACH payments? So that will be coming when we launch this come July. That same feature will be available. It's in the standard payments package today. You can do ACH with micro deposit, but to be able to pay, like I showed you on the demo here, that's actually working in that environment. We've used it many times in real production scenarios. So that will be coming in July. Any other questions? No? Okay, thanks everybody.